Men are here. We make fire.
Through the years, so many people have helped me, and that's made me able to help others. And I've helped 100,000 people.
5 suspects, cash transactions, and a dangerous drug, ketamine. That's what it took to put an end to the life of Matthew Perry. Perry's battle against drug addiction wasn't a secret, but what really happened during his last moments? Let's uncover the details surrounding the death of Matthew Perry. You'll be shocked to find out who really was behind Perry's death. Matthew Longford. Perry was born on August 19, 1969, in Williamson, Massachusetts, to actor John Bennett Perry and press secretary Suzanne Langford. He had started acting as early as his childhood. Throughout his childhood, Perry only focused on his 2 hobbies, playing tennis and acting. He saw ups and downs in his early acting career, but soon became known and famous when he played Chandler Bing in the sitcom Friends in mid-1990s.
See, I wrote a note to myself, and then I realized I didn't need the note, so I balled it up, and now I wish I was dead.
Perry also starred in the movies Fools Rush In and The Whole 9 Yards. At the same time, he also struggled with the addiction to alcohol and prescription medicines, as he enjoyed the fame he earned through Friends.
Every day.
You were drinking alone at night?
Yeah, I was drinking, at that time I was drinking out with friends, a lot. And then...
Breakout star David Schwimmer, he will not leave his other friends behind.
David Schwimmer was the hot guy in the first year. I got the first movie, and he came into my dressing room.
As a result, he got into the first rehab for his addiction to a painkiller, Vicodin, in 1997, and his second rehab stay was finished in 2001. However, Perry still couldn't let go of his addiction for a few years and kept going to rehab many times. In one of his few books, Friends, Lovers, and The Big Terrible Thing, Perry wrote that he spent at least $7 million trying to cut his addiction and went to rehab 15 times. As Perry battled addiction himself, he tried to help other addicts as well. In order to get as many people to be sober as possible, he also pushed for changes in drug courts and turned his own house into a sober living facility for men, calling it Perry House. Besides addiction, Perry also faced some health issues, which ended up getting him hospitalized for pancreatitis in 2000. He was also rushed to hospital in 2018 for gastrointestinal perforation. He mentioned in his book that his colon burst because of an overdose of opioids, and he was on the brink of death. As a result, he stayed in hospital for 5 months while being on life support and 2 weeks in a coma.
They ran me into the emergency trauma room, and it was in there that my colon exploded. Well, I was put on an ECMO machine, and an ECMO machine, when you talk to any doctor, is a Hail Mary, is the last thing that you do before people die.
On October 28, 2023, Matthew Perry strangely died at his Pacific Palisades home at around 4 p.m. His longtime assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, found him floating in the pool with his face down and called emergency services. Los Angeles Fire Department responded to Iwamasa's emergency call and arrived at Perry's house. The personnel found him unconscious in the pool at around 4:07 p.m. and pronounced him dead at 4:17 p.m.
Perry's home is less than 100 yards up this road. It was around 4 p.m. that law enforcement reportedly entered that house and found the star unresponsive.
According to his autopsy, which was done in December 2023, Perry had died from acute effects of ketamine and also from drowning, coronary artery disease, and the effects of buprenorphine. Buprenorphine is a drug used to treat the addiction to opioids and also to relieve acute and chronic pain.
Sad breaking news. An autopsy report just in from the Los Angeles Medical Examiner's Office reveals that Friends star Matthew Perry died as a result of, quote, acute effects of ketamine and subsequent drowning. Perry was found dead in his swimming pool. In October, authorities...
According to the DEA's website, ketamine is an anesthetic that can cause hallucinations and affect the perception of sounds and sight. The medical examiner confirmed that Perry's body had more than the usual amount of ketamine, estimated at around 35 and 40 nanograms per milliliter, but his history and crime scene report said otherwise and confused authorities. As per his autopsy report, there weren't any drugs, pills, or medications found near Perry's pool. After struggling with addiction for decades, he was able to overcome it and had been sober for 19 months. There wasn't a single trace of any alcohol or drugs in his blood, but Perry was suffering from anxiety, and depression. Therefore, he had been getting ketamine infusion therapy, and his last therapy session was 1.5 weeks before his death. The reports confirmed that his death wasn't due to the infusion therapy, as ketamine remains active for only 3 to 4 hours.
What the report does say is that there was ketamine found in Matthew Perry's system, and it was reported that he had been receiving ketamine infusion therapy to treat depression and anxiety.
Police finally decided to pull a full-blown inspection into Perry's death. Los Angeles Police Department opened an investigation into Perry's death. After deep research, authorities found a total of 5 suspects who were taking advantage of Perry's addiction problems. His 59-year-old personal assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, who had been working for Perry for 25 years, was accused of procuring and injecting him with ketamine. Iwamasa had many day-to-day tasks related to Perry's medical care, including setting up medical appointments and ensuring that he was using lawfully prescribed medicine. The second suspect was 54-year-old Dr. Mark Chavez, who never saw Perry in person. He was connected with the clinic Dreamscape Ketamine in partnership, but the partnership ended soon, in July 2023, and he got a hold of all prescription drugs, including ketamine. While Chavez had responsibly sent some of the prescription drugs to other medical facilities, he kept some drugs with him, including ketamine lozenges and 12 vials of ketamine. Prior to Perry's death, the Drug Enforcement Administration and the Medical Board of California were already investigating why he had kept ketamine with him. The third suspect in Perry's case was 54-year-old Eric Fleming. He directed the 1999 Scarlett Johansson movie, My Brother the Pig, and produced the 2003 reality series, The Surreal Life. Fleming knew Perry through a mutual friend, and he was also the one accused of distributing ketamine, which killed Perry. Then comes the fourth suspect, Jasveen Sangha, who is also known as Ketamine Queen of North Hollywood. Sangha was running a drug dealing shop at her home. Fleming was found to be dealing with Sangha to get ketamine for Perry. The last and fifth suspect is Dr. Salvador Plasencia, who found out that Perry was looking for ketamine and reached out to Chavez. In September 2023, Plasencia learned that Perry was highly interested in ketamine. Soon after, he reached out to Chavez, who had previously been connected with a ketamine clinic, and discussed purchasing ketamine with him. In one of the text messages, Plasencia asked Chavez how much they should charge Perry for ketamine, saying, "I wonder how much this moron will pay, and let's find out." He also showed Chavez that he wanted to be the only supplier of ketamine to Perry.
He wrote in a text message, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay."
In the next few weeks, Plasencia bought ketamine from Chavez and then sold it to Iwamasa, Perry's assistant, while teaching him the use of it too. Additionally, he also went to Perry's house to hand over ketamine and even injected it into Perry in the back of a vehicle in the parking lot. On October 12th, he injected a great deal of ketamine into Perry, which ended up harming him. His systolic blood pressure went high and Perry was paralyzed. He couldn't move or even speak.
He worked with another medical doctor, defendant Mark Chavez, to obtain ketamine. He then worked with Mr. Perry's live-in assistant, defendant Kenneth Iwamasa, to distribute that ketamine to Mr. Perry.
Plasencia also secretly worked with Chavez to plan everything, including inventory, price, and the availability of ketamine to get Perry and Iwamasa to purchase it. Chavez later sold ketamine lozenges to Plasencia, which he had gotten after writing fake prescriptions in another patient's name without them knowing. Moreover, Chavez also ended up lying to ketamine suppliers in order to get more liquid ketamine. During the mid-October 2023, Iwamasa also began getting ketamine from Sangha and Fleming. Fleming had also offered to sell ketamine to Perry through texts multiple times on October 4th, 2023 and October 10th, 2023. But it is unclear whether Perry responded to his texts. Soon after that, he began texting Iwamasa and offered him ketamine on October 10th, 2023, and Iwamasa started negotiating the price of the drug.
Likewise, defendant Sonia knew what she was doing was harming defendants and also Mr. Perry. She took advantage of Mr. Perry by selling large amounts of ketamine to Mr. Perry over a 2-week period in October of 2023.
After they had discussed the price, Fleming contacted Sangha, the ketamine queen, and bought ketamine from her. After a few days, he showed a sample vial to Iwamasa, and then, on October 14th, 2023, he sold 25 vials of ketamine for $5,500 to Iwamasa. In the following days, he sold the same set of ketamine 2 times to Iwamasa. On October 24, 2023, as Fleming and Iwamasa were waiting for that day's supply, Fleming told Iwamasa that the ketamine was on its way to our girl, which meant Sangha. During the last week of Perry's death, Iwamasa injected ketamine into Perry at least 27 times without any medical knowledge or training. He gave 3 shots of ketamine to Perry on October 28, 2023, which led to Perry's death. On that day, Iwamasa began with the first shot at 8:30 a.m. and the second shot at 12:45 p.m. Around 40 minutes later, Perry asked Iwamasa to get the jacuzzi ready for him and said, "Shoot me up with a big one." Just after he gave Perry the 3rd shot, Iwamasa went to do other tasks and left Perry alone in the hot tub. When he got back, he found Perry lying in the tub with his face down and unconscious. After Perry died, Sangha told Fleming through a text, "Delete all our messages." Iwamasa then briefed Fleming that he had cleaned up the scene by removing drugs and paraphernalia and deleted all the evidence of drug deals with him.
Died. These defendants tried to cover up what they've done. On October 28th, after reading news reports of Mr. Perry's death, defendant Sonia wrote a text message to defendant Fleming saying, quote, "Delete all our messages."
Fleming sent a text message to Sangha that he was 90% sure everyone is protected. I never dealt with Perry, only his assistant. So the assistant was the enabler. Following Perry's death, federal agents and detectives from the Los Angeles Police Department searched Sangha's residence and found that she was into drug trafficking. They also came across 79 vials of ketamine, approximately 1.4 kilograms, 3.1 pounds, of orange pills containing some drugs, and prescription medicines, which were likely obtained through fraud.
As I mentioned, we found not just 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of pills containing methamphetamine, cocaine, bottles of Xanax and other illegally prescribed drugs, and selling paraphernalia. As I mentioned, it was a selling emporium.
Right after 10 months of Perry's death, a grand jury charged 5 suspects on August 15, 2024. Kenneth Iwamasa, Perry's assistant, alongside Dr. Mark Chavez, Dr. Salvadore Plasencia, Eric Fleming, and Jasveen Sangha, was arrested by authorities on the same day.
Shared just moments ago, I spoke with a retired DEA agent who told me this case could be very similar to the Michael Jackson death investigation. Now, if a doctor was prescribing ketamine outside the scope of what was medically necessary, he says the doctor could be charged in the case. Michael Jackson, of course, died of an overdose.
Iwamasa and Fleming pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine, with Fleming pleading guilty to an additional charge of distribution of ketamine, resulting in death. Fleming admitted that he distributed ketamine, which caused the death of Perry. He also confessed that he got ketamine from his source, Sangha, and sold 50 vials of ketamine to Perry's assistant, Iwamasa. Meanwhile, Iwamasa admitted that he had repeatedly injected ketamine into Perry without any medical training, including multiple shots on October 28, 2023. Chavez, on the other hand, confirmed that he will plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine. Chavez's attorney, Matthew Binninger, said, "Due to the ongoing nature of the case out of the Central District, neither Mark Chavez nor myself will be making any statements at this time. Sangha has not pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine, 1 count of maintaining drug-involved premises, 1 count of possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine, 1 count of possession with intent to distribute ketamine, and 5 counts of distribution of ketamine." The judge called off a bond of Sangha she had from her previous charge, plus she was ordered to be jailed. Prosecutors said she would likely escape because she often traveled internationally, has dual citizenship in the United States and Britain, and had been supporting herself financially through drug deals. Her trial is set for October 8, 2024. Sangha had been drug dealing, including selling ketamine from her house since 2019, and she knew how harmful ketamine is. In August 2019, she sold ketamine to Cody McClory just before his death, due to an overdose. Later, McClory's family member texted Sangha that her ketamine had taken the life of McClory. Sangha was worried as she searched on Google, "Can ketamine be listed as a cause of death?"
It's also said that Sangha, that so-called ketamine queen, was aware of the dangers of ketamine because she sold the drug to another man back in 2019 who died of an overdose that same day, and her family even reached out to her that day. Today, that judge revoked her bond, and she remains
Coming to Plasencia, he has pleaded not guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine, 7 counts of distribution of ketamine, and 2 counts of altering and falsifying documents or records related to the federal investigation. Between February and March 2024, Plasencia was legally asked to submit documents during the federal investigation. In response, he submitted altered and fake medical records. He claimed that those documents showed a real treatment plan for Perry, but in actuality, Plasencia was trying to protect himself. Plasencia was let go after paying a $100,000 bond and gave up his passport and DEA license. This license allowed him to prescribe controlled substances to his patients. His trial will be held on October 8, 2024. Plasencia's attorney, Stephen Sachs, said he will soon attend to his patients at Malibu Canyon Urgent Care. However, he will not be allowed to prescribe any controlled substances or drugs, and his patients would need to sign a consent form first, which mentions that he is facing a federal case. Sachs was asked if Plasencia would take a plea agreement, to which Sachs said, "It's too early to say anything since the defense team hadn't received any prosecution evidence." United States Attorney Martin Estrada said, "These defendants cared more about profiting off of Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being. Drug dealers selling dangerous substances are gambling with other people's lives over greed. This case, along with our many other prosecutions of drug dealers who cause death, sends a clear message that we will hold drug dealers accountable for the deaths they cause." He also said that ketamine is a drug that must be administered by medical professionals, and the patient must be monitored closely. That did not occur here. Iwamasa faces a sentence of 10 years in prison, while Fleming faces up to 25 years in prison. On the other hand, Chavez will be indicted on August 30th, 2024, and might face up to 10 years in prison.
In this case, we filed this morning a plea agreement for defendant Chavez. So he's already not entered, but we have a filed plea agreement for him. 2 other defendants, defendant Iwamasa, have also signed plea agreements. That plea agreement has been entered. And defendant Fleming has signed a plea agreement. That plea agreement has been entered. As I mentioned, the 2...
If Sanga is convicted of all the charges in her trial, she will serve a mandatory sentence of 10 years in prison and a statutory sentence of life imprisonment. Plasencia will likely serve 10 years in federal prison for every ketamine-related charge and 20 years in federal prison for every falsification count. That's all for today's video. If you liked watching this video, give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more similar content. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments.